Welcome to another episode of the Speakeasy Podcast, powered by HireEasy and the Recruiting Academy. I am so excited for my special guest, Megan Cantrell. She is a senior manager of talent acquisition at OxBlue, which is a part of Hexagon, and she has mastered how to fill software sales roles. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan. Happy to be here.
Software sales is one of the unique roles and people want to get into it. How did you get into talent acquisition and what drew you specifically to software sales and this sector?
Talent acquisition actually found me. I was applying for a job through a recruiting agency and they liked how conversational I was on the phone and flipped me to work for them internally instead. So I worked for a few agencies before I moved to recruiting in-house. I've been the first in-house talent acquisition leader at the last 3 companies I've worked for, building out their entire talent acquisition department. And I've worked for companies as large as 7,000 plus employees to small startups. I've worked in industries like hospitality all the way to tech, and I've been specializing in SaaS sales teams for about 3+ years now. And what's drawn me to SaaS sales is that it's exciting to pick roles that have high growth potential, where there's high bonus potential and career pathing. And I'm a big believer that recruiting is in itself sales. So it's really fun to engage with like-minded individuals.
They're selling you, you are selling them. You kind of got to weed out the good, the bad, the ugly within those sales individuals that you're recruiting. How do you do that? And any tips that you have when you're recruiting salespeople?
Oh yeah, so many. So SaaS roles are highly diverse and there are a lot of challenges when you're looking for talent. I've learned, for example, that the same job title can mean totally different things at different companies. So for example, like a sales manager can be an individual contributor at one company or leading a team at another company. A VP of sales can be a leader of leaders at one company and can be leading an individual team at another company. So it's just really important to cast a wide net, not have tunnel vision when you're sourcing like just job titles like, for example, because you never know who could be a good fit. And also with recruiting, I've learned that you just really have to know your roles through and through. Like, what are the hiring team's expectations as far as prior experience? So, for example, is the role inside sales or outside sales? Like, are they doing demos via webcam or are they meeting with people in person? Should this candidate be booking out a book of existing business, or are they working with like 100% net new logo? What does the average deal size look like, or average sales cycle? How much of that candidate's experience like aligns with the role that you're looking for? So you really have to own it and really deep dive with your hiring team.
There's some unique challenges that you might have encountered recruiting sales professionals. How have you addressed those, and what are some challenges that continue to keep coming up?
I would say the problem with hiring salespeople is you can't tell if they're actually good at the job or if they're just good at selling that they're good at the job. So you've got to really discern that. And so when you are interviewing someone in sales, they can demonstrate that they're good at sales because they're good at pitching themselves appropriately in the role throughout the interview process. So, I mean, you have a front row seat to how good a person is at sales. Are they answering questions succinctly? Do they talk so much you can't get a word in edgewise? Are they answering your questions directly, or are they talking in circles? Like, for example, a salesperson writes a follow-up email to a prospective client, right? It's surprising how few sales candidates in the interview process will actually write a follow-up thank you email to a recruiter or a hiring manager after an interview. Seems so obvious, right? I would see 5%. In 3 years, I've seen 5% of people do a thank you email. So ultimately, a challenge that you can answer is the candidate following like the natural steps of sales in the interview process?
I think that is super, super critical within the interview process of the follow-ups and those simple things, because if they're not doing it for a specific role that they specifically want, they're not going to do it for that sale that they specifically want. And it's about how you treat those internal employees, internal customers, but also that external customer beyond just the sale. In your experience, when you're recruiting these professionals, what are some of the kind of the most effective strategies for sourcing and attracting that top tier sales professional to your organization?
So I would say effective strategies. You want to recruit. It's a highly competitive market. So you want to make sure that your company is standing out. You want to find new ways to reach them, like sending out video texts via like BombBomb, for example, or creating frequently asked question videos starring your hiring team. Provide links to company social media pages or employee testimonials. Know the specific stats of your sales team, like KPIs, quotas. How many sales members are meeting quota quarterly, annually? That's a huge selling point. If you can say something like 80% of my team is meeting or exceeding quota, then that is a huge selling point for a salesperson because you're selling the role to them, right? So know how those on target earnings are being paid out. Know if residuals on deals are closed on a comp. Excuse me. Know if residuals on deals closed are a comp feature. There are sellable differentiators to your role that will make you stand out to your competition, and you have to know them. I would also say ABR, always be recruiting. So often a candidate is not the right fit for the role you're sourcing for, but someone in their network is. I have gotten so many amazing hires from people I've spoken to who weren't the right fit, but had someone in their network who was. So you want to connect with each and every person you speak with on LinkedIn so they can see your posts about roles you're sourcing for, about great companies you're representing. And you want to ask those candidates if they know anyone in their network. So when I'm closing a conversation where something doesn't align, I always say, is there someone you know in your network? And I'll even go so far as to text them my pitch. Like, here is a blurb you can share with your friends, with your network, that so they can just copy paste and send it to their buddy who they know is looking and see if it aligns. And I just list the make or breaks. Like, don't waste someone's time. Tell them up front, what's the salary? What's the remote slash hybrid slash in-person policy? That kind of thing.
How would you decipher if that individual is just in the wrong environment or the product isn't doing well and they're really, really good at sales and building those relationships versus somebody else that maybe the product is on fire and they don't really have to do that extra lift, but they are crushing numbers because they're in a perfect storm of success? How do you decipher between the two scenarios on what would be the best fit for your organization or getting into a software sales role?
That's such a great question and such an easy thing to misconstrue in the interview process. So it's like balancing, technical proficiency and soft skills. And I would say we do scenario based questions. So we'll ask people in the interview process, for example, what would you do if a prospective customer asks you for a comparison of your software's data security features versus a competitor? Or we might ask, like, how do you use data to refine your sales approach? We want to ask them in the moment questions where we can evaluate their clarity, their accuracy, and their ability to, communicate technical value concisely, because that's not going to necessarily be reflected in your product sells itself. That's going to reflect, can you sell the product? Um, Likewise, just role play based. We can conduct things where candidates have to sell something they already know about and have sold in the past. Like we've seen candidates like sell this pen, or you're really into professional dancing. Tell us why we should buy a package of dance classes, like just something that they're passionate about in their regular life, because we want to see how they do selling something they know about. And ideally, we'll ask them to sell something like the software they've sold in the past and ask them to be specific about it. And so when I'm asking them this, what I'm looking for is for them to assess the value, how valuable they can make the product seem, how they can assess the ability to communicate a technical part of the sales process while also putting the candidate through the pressure cooker and understanding the soft skills, like if they have that natural game. Because not everyone can do that. And what's really important about that is, can they take feedback well? Oftentimes we'll do a role play and then we'll say, okay, that was great, but can you try it this way? You might see someone get defensive. That's a red flag. You might see someone who doesn't take the feedback and utilize it effectively. So maybe they're not coachable. But it's just really important to remember that, every candidate is going to handle those questions differently. And you kind of got to, on a dime, be able to navigate with them and how they're approaching it in the situation. So it's a recruiter soft skills too that come into play in those moments.
Obviously, AI is a huge push with every single part of recruiting, but also in the industry as a whole. How do you foresee the evolution of SaaS sales recruitment?
I would say the trends are going to lean towards a potential adjustment with BDR, like top of funnel programs becoming less needed. AI is just moving so rapidly that those SDR, BDR programs might not be, being utilized as much. And so it's going to be challenging for people who want to get into sales because the expectation isn't going to be you get your foot in the door as an entry level. You've got to be able to do the full sales cycle, have that confidence in those demos, and that needs to go back to the education they're getting. Like in schools, a lot of times these sales specialty schools are teaching people how to be BDRs. They've got to be teaching them how to do full sales cycle demos because the AI world is going to reduce the need for the top of funnel. So we've got to fill that gap between how do you get people who have never done this before all the way to being strong full sales cycle demo presenting deal closing folks. And that's probably going to have to start with how they're educated, how they're taught, and we're going to have to close that gap. But yeah, I think BDR programs might be on their way out, unfortunately.
So what would your advice be if someone wanted to get into a sales role like this, of getting that opportunity and breaking into software sales?
To the candidates, my advice would be um, don't be afraid to, like I said before, demonstrate your sales skills in the interview process. There are folks who figure out how to get through the gatekeepers, how to get to the decision makers from the start of the interview process. They're emailing the hiring manager who is coming to me and saying, hey, I want to interview this person, not because he's necessarily qualified, but because he knows how to approach this. Like he's writing this professional email to me demonstrating he knew how to figure out how to get in touch with me. And he knew to reach out to the specific correct person. He didn't just like email everyone in sales. And he or she, actually demonstrated their value in the process. I've seen people who will not only send me a direct email, but also send me a LinkedIn message and say, hey, here's, why I think I could build value in this role. So, don't just apply. You've got to set yourself apart and introduce yourself and show those sales skills in the interview process. And I would say from a recruiting standpoint, it's really important to invest in the partnership between the sales department leader and the recruiter. You'll have differences in your approach, but the eventual partnership is really dynamic. You create systems and synergies and you build trust off of each other. And as a consequence, you're able to build a better team because you're in alignment with what you're looking for. Like I just know what my CSO is looking for, and I don't have to waste his time submitting candidates for his review. I can get them through it with confidence because we have had those tough conversations and worked effectively through what's working and what's not.
And every company is a little bit differently, but in your experience, are you seeing hiring that you have to have that specific skill set within a specific industry? Or is it cross-functional that you can sell in one industry, transition into software sales and be successful?
Yes and no. A lot of like the industry that we're in is very niche. So the expectation is absolutely not going to be like for like. But ideally, perfect world, yes, you come from having sold software before. But ideally, even more than that, like what we do here is what we consider inside sales, where you're closing deals remotely. So we look for people who are used to that. Because if you've been out in the field driving around closing deals in person, that takes a different type of sales skills than somebody who can speak to a camera with potentially 30 decision makers on the screen staring at you as you're selling this highly complex product. So that is a different skill set altogether, but it's a transferable one from one industry to another. So it's just a matter of, have you been doing something similar before? And also, I mean, are you intellectually curious? I think that a lot of folks understand that there's a lot of different sales methodologies out there. There's BANT, there's Challenger, there's MedPick, and not one works for every single person. So like folks who are interested in understanding how those work, how those can play into those secondary questions that you can ask in the discovery process can really play in, and you'll see them come out in the interview process as well.
Got it. Is it getting more and more challenging to recruit these highly intelligent, highly skilled salespeople for your organization? And what are the challenges of how to sell them on the opportunity to come to your organization?
So I would say big one is going to be knowing what is the sellable differentiator. And getting in front of them from the start, talking about your success. A lot of recruiters just say, I'm, that canned template that they send out on LinkedIn message. Like, I'm very interested in your experience. Well, I would love to hear about your experience, but let me tell you why you should give me the time of day. Let me tell you what's different about us in terms of we're hitting that quota. We're crushing sales records. We are a company that hasn't been laying off people like every other company for the last few years. We have job stability. We have career pathing. Like, speak to the things that you can stand behind that do set you apart in this highly competitive world, that are going to speak to people who may or may not be open to a new job, but are interested in a conversation.
For sure. Are these people on LinkedIn? Are you reaching out to them via email, text messages, cold calling? What are strategies that are working to get in front of these salespeople? Or is it salespeople, hey, I'm always looking for that next opportunity that's more pay, better benefits, whatever it may be, and they're willing to have conversations?
So LinkedIn's in the sales world, LinkedIn is a great resource for sure. You're absolutely going to see people very active on there in that industry. But I'm a big fan of RepView, for example. I would absolutely encourage other recruiters to set up an account on RepView. It's like Glassdoor for sales people. And you can post 2 jobs for free on there. And it's absolutely worth considering investing in additional paid jobs on the site. I'd also recommend just expanding your local sources. For example, my company's hybrid, so I need to look for people in Atlanta. So I'm looking at organizations like WIT, Women in Technology, or TAG, Technology Association of Georgia. I mean, there's also, if you're looking for entry level, there's Handshake, which you can get on alumni job boards, or you can recruit straight out of college. While LinkedIn is great, always think outside of LinkedIn, because you could be missing out on a huge amount of talent that is out there that you're finding somewhere else. Like, I got one of the most amazing hires from Women in Technology for sales operation, and she's just crushing it. And it's ways like that. LinkedIn, sharing one of our funny outtake videos, got us our account executive rookie of the year because of humor and authenticity. So outside the box thinking never hurts.
All right, let's switch to the quick fire questions. What's the number one trait you look in hiring top performing software sales?
As I said, intellectual curiosity, someone who will ask the right questions. Will they listen to their prospects with intention and adapt well to those answers given? Can they creatively problem solve? Are they coachable? Have they mastered multi-threading? That's a big thing. And by the way, everything I'm saying, that applies to like sales recruiting as well. When you're listening to a candidate, like I said, you've got to read the tone of their voice if they're hesitant, and adapt your line of questioning as well. So, you kind of have to creatively problem solve when you're assessing them and talking to them, and actively listening to them as well. But their intellectual curiosity and interest in, like I said, for example, different sales methodologies, that's always a super encouraging thing, that somebody really wants to learn how to be better.
Flip side, what's the biggest red flag when you're talking to a candidate, or they put something on their resume and you're like, something just doesn't add up?
Funny enough, it is the absence or presence of something on their resume. Light or no sales performance results on a resume is a red flag, because if someone is far above quota every year, they're going to brag about it. They're going to put it on their resume. And if that's not the case, it is routinely not shown on the resume. So the absence of that information tends to lean towards you probably weren't hitting your quota every year.
A big topic in recruiting right now is transferable skills, and hiring for skills. What have you seen in the market of people transitioning that they weren't in sales before, but transitioned into a sales role and they were successful?
Honestly, restaurant workers are a great transferable people. One of our top BDRs, who's now a leader, was a bartender in the past, and he just knew how to listen well. So, love to see people coming out of that industry. Oftentimes, you'll see people as well who are coming out of maybe the back end of sales, like they did sales operations, but their personality is such that they really should be better in front of like a client facing role. So, it's interesting when you see people like they try on these other fits. Maybe it's client support. They're doing tech support, but they realize, you know what? I can pitch this role. Like, I believe in this product so much. I don't need to be troubleshooting. I need to be telling people how to how this can better them. So you definitely see people switching over into sales from other industries. Just a key takeaway that I want to share is just that I do believe that recruiting is sales. We're out there cold calling, so to speak. We're pitching to passive candidates. who may not be interested in this opportunity. And so we have to adapt in real time in the interview process with candidates. So the same standards that we hold to sales candidates also apply to us in recruiting. So just continue that active listening and pivoting on a dime.
So if somebody, let's just say, was a recruiter and they got laid off and they're searching for a new opportunity and they're interested in sales, what would you tell them from an advice of, we all know that recruiting is sales? How would they pitch that to a company or a leader or in their interview?
Great question. We see it all the time. And I would say, yeah, in the interview process, if you're a recruiter wanting to go into sales, you can absolutely pitch the fact that you're already doing the cold calling, you're already finding your own leads, you're already out there demoing the product and closing the deal of having somebody sign on to be in a contract. And I mean, honestly, to me, recruiting is different from sales in the fact that you're changing someone's life, like their career is changing because of your impact on them. It's not just a client buying a product from you and trying that on. You're asking somebody to trust that this is going to be the right fit for them and their family, for their career, for their finances, for their future. So it's a huge amount of pressure to be a recruiter. And I feel like it absolutely translates to sales because, we're doing it in real time.
As you're working with your internal leaders and maybe you have some finalists into a sales role, what are some strategies of how to pick the right one? And you have that influence as that recruiter and put your 2 cents in of saying, I think A candidate is better than B candidate and the reasons why.
So I would say, first of all, dig in deep. Don't let job titles get to you. Maybe somebody with slightly less experience might have more of that intellectual curiosity, like we said. So again, it's more about soft skills and what someone says on a resume, who pitched better in that role play or scenario based question line of thought. Like, so it's really weighing them in the process, not what's on paper, but how they've come across and demonstrated those sales skills. And like I said, I do like to, on the front end, keep my LinkedIn messages somewhat vague. I don't necessarily mention the job because when I'm pitching, I want to keep in mind that somebody could be the right fit for a different role. So like as you're going through interviewing, you got candidate A and candidate B. Okay, well, candidate B might be better for this role, but what about candidate A for something we have that we're, creating down the line in 6 months, and we want to keep them in mind, or we want them to know they've had a really positive experience, even if we don't go ahead with them. So it's things like that you have to weigh as you go, and ultimately just, again, I think soft skills are the way to really measure it. It's not what's on paper. It's how they presented things in the process in the interview.
Love it. If you had to cut one step from the hiring process, throw it out, what would that be right now?
That's a tough question. I think I would rephrase that to say I would reframe a step. So skills assessments can be super broad from company to company, but a lot of them don't actually target the job duties in a specific role. So like, for example, if it's a sales role, they're going to be writing emails to prospective client objectives. So maybe have them, like, say prior to interview one, write an example email, bring it into the interview, show it to the hiring manager, let them provide feedback, have them take home that feedback and resubmit that email. So again, see if they're coachable, see if they can learn from the feedback, and also see what they're like on the job. Can they write a compelling email? Because yeah, like I said, wouldn't cut the step, but I'd reframe it to really see if you're getting those measurable soft skills in the process.
Awesome. Last question as we wrap up. What's the best piece of recruiting advice you've ever received?
Oh, it's treat candidates the way you want to be treated. I mean, if you show them the respect that you would give to your own parents and over communicate with them, that is absolutely what you can do, because most candidates are evaluating you and your treatment of them as a reflection of the company that they're considering joining. So it's all about respecting your candidate, making sure they have a positive experience, that they feel communicated in every step of the process.
Love it. Anything else that you want to share with the audience as we wrap up?
Just that, love Hire Easy, love working with you, Dan, that for recruiters, by recruiters, and the academy that you all offer. gotten so many great tips off of there. I love the community that you all are building and encourage anyone to check out everything that you guys are doing over there.
And if you didn't know, Megan did speak at the last FRBR conference. So make sure you go to the YouTube page and listen to her presentation. It's a wealth of knowledge, and you're really going to get something out of it. Again, I want to say thank you, Megan, for all of your support and your insights on software sales. To the whole OxBlue team, thank you so much for the partnership, and we'll see you later. Thanks again.
Thank you.
The future of talent acquisition isn't coming. It's already here. See for yourself at HireEasy.com.